Good afternoon, morning, or evening, whatever part of the world you're in. You're listening to Genesis Office Hours episode number 44. I'm your host, Carrie Dills, and so glad you could join us today, whether you're listening live or if you're catching this after the fact on iTunes or such. Awesome lineup today. We're going to be talking about code internationalization, localization, translations, all the Asians today. All right, without further ado, let's introduce our guest. Coming from across the pond, we've got Gary Jones. Hey, Gary.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are.
And beside him, even further across the pond, is Nir Rosenbaum. Hello, Nir.
Hi, Carrie. Hi, Gary. Hi, everyone.
Good to see you guys.
Good to see you, and thank you for having us. Absolutely.
And Nir is proof that podcasts can help introduce you to wonderful people, because he is a longtime listener of Genesis Office Hours and would always post great questions, and that's actually how we met, and that has led to us recently getting to work on a couple of projects together. Before we dive into questions, just some housekeeping. If you're listening via Twitter, or excuse me, if you're on Twitter, you can tag a question with GOHchat, and we will answer that on the air. And really, I don't think there really is any other house cleaning to be done today. So let's, for the uninitiated, what is internationalization? What are we even talking about? Gary, would you like to tackle that one?
So internationalization is the process by which you can make your theme or your plugin code. We're talking about obviously in the WordPress environment here. You can make your plugin or your theme code, particularly the strings inside of it, available for translation. So if I'm writing a theme, a Genesis child theme, or a plugin, I can wrap the strings. So it might be a string that you're echoing, you're displaying on screen. It could be the front end, could be the WordPress admin, and it's wrapping that within a certain, there's a set of functions within WordPress core that kind of further on down the line allow either yourself or other people to, instead of displaying kind of the English string, is display the French string or the German string or the Spanish string or some Bulgarian string or some other Malaysian string, whatever kind of language or locality you fancy, so that either users of your WordPress, the back end of the WordPress, or your front end users, if your site is displaying in a particular language, will see that string in their language and not have kind of a block of English kind of in the middle of it. So
awesome. And at Matt Mullenweg's State of the Word that he gave in back in October at WordCamp San Francisco, he mentioned that non-English. Let me get the stat in front of me so I don't do a forever misquoted here. But non-English downloads of WordPress, oh gosh, this is terrible. I'm the worst host ever because I don't have that. Anyways, I think he said it surpassed English downloads for the first time. So it's clear that working with international users is more important than ever. There's so many people that are using and building with WordPress that are not English speaking, or at least English speaking as a first language. So, go ahead.
I was saying, in terms of kind of the premium theme or premium plugin market, by not supporting and in terms of kind of all the topics that we're talking about today, the internationalization is kind of the basic one that developers should be doing without a second thought. By not doing that, they are excluding immediately kind of potential customers from say more than half the world. So it's a critical kind of business. It's a non-decision decision to actually kind of go ahead and add internationalization to the code, because then others can kind of do the localization and the translation and other bits that we'll talk about. But it's silly for them not to go ahead and do that. So it's very critical.
One thing that I do want to distinguish between if you're, let's say you're customizing a theme for a client for a specific project, a specific usage, or you're creating a custom theme for a client, in that case, internationalization is less important because the intent is not to distribute the code or have others use it outside of that context. Really, internationalization is more about, or more critical, if you're distributing themes or plugins, so that other people can then take them and build on them. Just wanted to quickly mention that. But Nir,
if you've got a multi-site as well, though, you could still have a multi-language site, so you still might want to have certain strings output in the different languages, even if it's only going to be on your site as well. So,
Right.
oh, there you go. There's an edge case. Nir, you're a Genesis developer, and you are writing a lot of sites in Hebrew, which is a right-to-left script. And when you first told me a little bit about what your process was from taking a Genesis child theme and making it work for a client, I was a little flabbergasted because it sounded like what would take me 10 minutes and with a great deal of ease was a tremendous challenge for you to make make those themes work in Hebrew. So can you shed a little light to our listeners on that process?
Yes, sure. And, I mean, if a theme is not RTL ready, I'm not speaking about internalization ready. What Gary told you about the strings. If the CSS is not RTL ready, it means that there is another step that I need to take in order to make the site ready for Hebrew or for Arabic. And there are automated tools that can help me, but still, it's another step to take for every site that I build, and it's time-consuming. And this process can be done as part of the theme building, the child theme CSS building. And up until now, I had to do it manually for each client. And that is why a few months ago we spoke all together about making it available for as part of the theme, not on a project basis. So it's taking the CSS, flipping elements from left to right, and vice versa. Other things to do with margins and paddings and stuff like that. And there are always edge cases to look for because we are talking about CSS and browsers, and you get many issues across platforms, and it's a hell. It's time-consuming, so it's better to do it as part of the process of building your plugin or theme.
Man, I wish there was a theme that addressed that issue.
do you know of such a thing, Carrie?
That was a shameless self-promo for the just launched in this past week Utility Pro theme, which both Gary and Nir collaborated with me on. Nir did all the RTL testing, installed it, made sure that every aspect looked good right out of the box. So if you're, to Nir's point, if you are working with a RTL script, there's nothing that you need to do with Utility Pro to make it look correct. It just is correct out of the box. So thank you, Nir, for teaching me something about working with a non-left to right, or yeah. And then Gary for doing the amazing code audit. My gosh, if you need hire Gary Jones to do it. It does a fantastic. One thing, and we've got Twitter questions that folks are asking. I tweeted purposefully using the hashtags I18N, L11N, and A11Y. And Gary, you did a great job of explaining that via Twitter. But there's 18 letters between I and N. So internationalization, that's where the I18N comes in. Same thing for the for localization, and also the same kind of formula for accessibility. That's where those crazy hashtags came from. Okay, we've got a question from Devender. He is asking, does internationalization make themes compatible with all languages or specific mods for specific languages? So maybe let's talk about the difference between internationalization and localization. Gary, I'll let you take that one.
So internationalization is what the developer would do when they're building their plugin or their theme. As I said before, it's taking those strings and wrapping them in the WordPress core functions. There's about 8 or 10 or so functions. So if you see some code and it's kind of underscore bracket, then what you see is a standard English string, then some extra bit at the end and a close bracket. That's one example of the internationalization. There's an underscore, there's an underscore E, there's an underscore X for when you add a context to it, and there's one for handling kind of plurals and numbers and so on. So there's a few internationalization functions, but they're all collected there. So that's what the developer would do. However, all that does is it marks the strings as being translatable. It doesn't translate it. What we then need to do after we've highlighted those strings that we want translated is to generate what they call a POT file. So that's a portable object template file. It's just .pot, and there's several different ways of doing that, but essentially that runs through that code of that plugin or theme. It pulls out all of those strings so that it collects a list of those strings, and it's just a plain text file that collects them in. And that file is then used by people who do the localization, who would then take your string of hello world, and it would create they would add in a French string or German string or Spanish string, whichever language they want. That is then used by the plugin or the theme, and the plugin or theme has to do something called loading the text domain. And once they've done that, then it all matches up, and every time WordPress sees the hello world, it will not show the English version, it will show the French version, and so on. So the localization is kind of the bit that other people can do that the developers don't need to do, but it's helpful if they know another language as well. But often that will be crowdsourced, and there's different ways of doing that. But the internationalization, the first step is the developer. Everything else is what other people can do.
Excellent. So Utility Pro shipped with 10 languages, so 10 localization files, those MO and PO files. Nir, you wrote the Hebrew translation for me. Gary, are you going to get the British version?
Yes. When I first looked through it, there wasn't any differences between the US English and the correct English or British English. But I think at one point you did add a Z in there for something, so I do need to go in and correct.
I don't know. Nir, can you hear me?
British English. There you are. So yes, I will do it at some point.
All right. There's some freezing up happening, and I don't know. It might be my crappy hotel Wi-Fi, or who knows. So sorry if you're listening, and it's a little bit of a bumpy ride. Let's see what other questions we've got coming in. Daniel says that he's an edge case. I think that was in reference to our earlier multi-site making a project translation ready, even if it's only for yourself.
Daniel's in Bulgaria, so I mentioned that string earlier, so he's perhaps counting on that as well.
Ah, okay. And Daniel, I did get your email today about translating Utility Pro. I'm in the process of setting up a GlotPress installation. I've actually already got the install. I'm trying to figure out the best way to marry that with my GitHub repo to keep all the things synced. But as soon as that's ready, I will roll that out, because I would love for other folks to continue adding to those translation files.
Can you tell us what a GlotPress install is, for those who don't know?
Yes, so GlotPress is a way of managing translations. I am just tongue-tied today. Managing translations in a way that allows other people to contribute. Nir, do you have a better explanation? I'm sure you do.
It's just a nice tool that helps translators around the world create the localized version of the plugin or the theme that is being localized. That's all. Simple as that. I used it for translating Genesis to Hebrew, for example, and other plugins that I'm using. Sometimes there is a need to create the language file, and if the plugin or theme is ready for localization, then there is a WordPress installation ready for us as developers to create the translation files.
It's a very useful tool as well. If you go to translate.wordpress.org, you'll find a GlotPress install. If you go to translate.studiopress.com and translate.yoast.com for the Yoast WordPress SEO and Google Analytics and so on. So there's quite a few plugin developers and theme developers who have got GlotPress installs. And whereas if you're localization, there's a couple of individual tools that you could use. The PO edit is one. I think there's a code localization plugin as well. Or you could just edit the kind of the text file, which is a little trickier but still possible. All of those are kind of self-contained as to what you've done. So ideally, you need to finish off the whole translation file before you send it back. What GlotPress does is kind of centralizes everybody's efforts. So if there's a project that has got 100 strings and I translate 10 of them, somebody else could do 20 of them, and we're not having to kind of duplicate efforts. And if there's a translation that perhaps isn't as straightforward between one language and another, or English and another language, then people can see, well, they've put that, but somebody else thinks it's slightly different, so they could kind of submit to that. And that way you then have kind of validators to say, well, actually, no, the first person was right. And it just centralizes the efforts between translating the strings for plugins and themes.
See, that was a totally better explanation than I gave.
What it also allows is that theme and the plugin developers can easily pull kind of the latest version of all those strings. So when they release a new version of their plugin or theme, they can update GlotPress, tell their kind of their translators and their validators. They'd go along, change any kind of new strings or add translations to any new strings or edited strings, and the developer can easily kind of pull that down. If they've got the right setup, it's kind of it's one command and to create all the PO file and the .mo file, which is what the computers actually use for that. So it's a far more efficient way of working than kind of the PO edit, which is like desktop software, and code localization, which is a WordPress plugin. It's better than those two.
So in addition to translate.wordpress.org, which is of course the WordPress translation project, Web Savvy Marketing recently went through and retrofitted all their themes to be translation ready, and I got to work with both of you guys on that project as well. But all of those themes, if you go to translate.websavvymarketing.com, you can contribute on those as well. I did find this was my first time working with translators on a project, and Gary, what you mentioned, when there's a phrase that doesn't quite translate, you know, translation is not always literal. It's got to be in context of what is trying to be communicated. So there's not always a one-to-one swap. But for instance, in Utility Pro, I have this widget area called a call to action bar. And that, a lot of people stumbled over that, of like, what the heck does a call to action, like what are we really doing? What is a and trying to translate that into Norwegian was Morton had a time. But
another aspect of that is that even kind of certain words in English, so kind of the word post is the obvious answer. It could be kind of a verb to actually go and post something, or a noun that you've created a post. So one of the internationalization functions is a way to add context to those.
Let's see, Jan. Well, this is awkward.
Okay, we're done.
No, you cut out, and I didn't know if people could hear you or if they could hear me, but I could not hear you.
I couldn't hear you.
I'm gonna I'm gonna watch the replay to see what you're saying. You got golden nuggets put out.
Moving on.
We had a question from Jan, and he wants to know your thoughts on dialect translations. So, you know, in the case of same language, but dialect variations.
If you've gone, yeah.
Oh. Or Gary, yeah, somebody jump in.
If they, because I saw one go past the kind of Welsh and Scottish and so on. I mean, yes, they are different languages, and even if you count kind of British English as a dialect of US English, certainly within the WordPress core, there is a British English, there's a Canadian English, and there's an Australian English, and they all maintain their own currently separate list of strings that are that count as different languages compared to the US English. So certainly for the British English, there's the kind of often a lot of the Zs in the US English are changed to S's, and trash gets changed to bin, and there's a few howdies that we kind of get rid of for the British English because we don't say howdy. And so yeah, definitely dialects. Whether you'd have kind of a Texas dialect compared to a Chicago dialect, or kind of country regional dialects within the country, depends if it counts as a different language. So perhaps kind of the Catalan, I think there is actually the Catalan within Spain is probably different to the Spanish one. Certainly kind of Portuguese and kind of Brazilian Portuguese and Spanish, Mexico Spanish and so on. They're all different dialects of what is essentially supposedly the same language. So yes, they can definitely have dialects.
Yeah, the Texas translation, I'm still waiting for that one to become official. US_TX, and there is a lot of y'alls and howdies in there. Let's see. We had Leonica had a question. Let's see, where did that go? She was asking, what's the best way if you're looking to learn more about these topics? What resources would you recommend? A book, or just looking at code, or go and do the WordPress Codex?
You want to take this one, Nir?
Sure.
Okay. So first, I think that there is an information about the process of making your plugin or theme localized or internationalized. First of all, look at the codex. There is a simple, for example, for RTL, there is a one page, a simple one page of the RTL process that you need to take in order to make your CSS files RTL. There is a nice slideshow in the SlideShare about the RTL process, as a slideshow that Yoav Farhi from Automatic wrote about the process. It's very helpful. It's from 3 years ago, but still very relevant. And there is a new process. Gary, maybe you can talk about the way that you can automate the process by creating the style RTL file and so on.
Yep. So one of the problems about creating the style RTL, so the right to left style sheet, obviously where you have it kind of mirrored, is that if you were to change the color of something or the width of something in your style.css, then you'd have to manually remember to go and update it on the right to left version style sheet as well, and remember if it's a kind of a margin left that you actually really want to get rid of that margin left and do it as a margin right. So it can be quite a laborious task. There are task runners. Grunt is one of them. There are other ones as well, but Grunt is the task runner that WordPress core uses, and there's a tool called CSS Janus. Janus being the god of January, so he's got two heads looking left and right, I think it comes from, and that's the CSS Janus, of which there's a task for Grunt as well to connect the two up. Will read the style.css, and it will automatically kind of read the properties of the CSS, and it will reverse it. So if you've got a margin left of 10px, then it will change it so you've got a margin left of 0 and a margin right of 10px. If you've got kind of background position properties, you need to make sure that they are percentages if it's a fixed width, so that you can, so if it's 25% background horizontal position, it will change it to a 75% background position in the RTL version. So there's a couple of little bits you need to just be careful how you write your style.css, but that way then the automation of generating or regenerating that RTL file is a matter of kind of a second or two, literally on the command line. So kind of during development, you can just change your style.css and have the right to left version changed straight away without having to manually make those changes. And then within your kind of theme functions file, you just add in a 1 line or 3 lines of code that just says that tells WordPress if you are running in a right to left language, so Arabic, Hebrew, Urdu, Persian, and some others, that it will replace the reference to style.css with a reference to style-rtl.css, and that way then you're not loading kind of 2 style sheets, 2 HTTP requests. You're actually just loading the one, and it's most efficient for your users as well.
Right.
Not to just continue with shameless self-promotions, but one of the versions of Utility Pro that I'm selling, it's the quote-unquote developer edition, but it includes those grunt tasks that CSS Janus, and also one for generating your POT file that you can look and see how that's done. And Gary, I learned something new, and that is that Jan is the god, or Janus is a 2-headed looking.
Yep.
Every way, which way, God. Who knew? Who knew? So there you have it. Greg asked if someone wanted to learn how to make a new child theme properly accessible, where would they go to start? Greg, I don't know if you heard last week's episode number 43. We had a fantastic accessibility panel on. I'd highly recommend going back and listening to that podcast. As well, just tweeted a link to WordPress's standards in order to meet that accessibility ready requirement. And so just even knowing what accessibility means, what the so things like your heading structure, things like skip link navigation and drop down, being able to tab through, use a site without a mouse or a touchpad. Just even knowing what some of those issues are is a great starting point, and then work backwards from there.
There is one note that I want to make, Kerry, about writing inline CSS. If you're writing something like that, bear in mind that it's almost impossible to make your theme or plugin RTL ready if you're writing inline CSS, or that you are rules via JavaScript. That makes it very hard to people like me to make it RTL. And usually I avoid using this kind of plugins or themes in this case.
All right. Yep. And Jan follows up and asks, is RTL, LTR more of a dev or a developer or front-end thing? Jan, I'm guessing you're asking from a developer perspective, that it should be built in from the get-go. I might be misunderstanding that question. Daniel, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So the front end. So what we mean by the RTL is that the front end is mirrored. So if you in a left to right environment, left to right language environment, I've got it set up with the sidebar on the right hand side. So if somebody were going to take that theme and kind of use it with Hebrew, for instance, then they should be pretty much mirrored so that the sidebar is on the other side. And WordPress will add an RTL body class. And it will also add a direction attribute in the HTML element as well. So, but if your theme has a theme options page, then you should be making sure that is kind of right to left supported as well. It's not just kind of what the site visitor sees; it's also what the site user potentially has potentially sees as well. There's a great tool if you want to kind of test how your theme looks, is RTL Tester. It's on the WordPress.org repo, and it just adds a little button to your WordPress admin toolbar, and you can just click on it, and it just tells WordPress. I think it adds a query string, tells WordPress display the site in the opposite way around, so it's just a toggle button, and you should see the whole lot kind of flip, whether you're on the front end or the back end, so you can see how WordPress core itself supports right to left as well.
I just tweeted that link out for the RTL Tester plugin, and another great plugin to use alongside that is the PigLatin plugin, and it basically takes whatever language your site is in and makes it into gibberish, which makes spotting errors much simpler than if your eye just catches them easier with that PigLatin. So definitely try out the RTL Tester plugin. And then Daniel's also asking if there's any specific unit test files for RTL, and to my knowledge, there's not. I mean, I think you could just use the regular theme unit test provided over at WordPress.org, and then in conjunction with that RTL tester to see how your theme is working. Do you know if any different?
I'm not aware of any tool, XML file for unit test RTL.
What you will find if you do the RTL with a left to right script is that not everything will be reversed. There's a difference in kind of the Unicode specification about the characters, that directionality information is built into the characters. So if you've got the Latin alphabet, that says directionality should be left to right. They're known as strong, or just known as strong kind of characters, whereas something like punctuation has no directionality, because that could be used in Hebrew, it could be used in English. So that has no directionality built into that. And what that means is that if you're in the right to left mode, your punctuation that you'd think should be at the kind of right hand side will suddenly have switched and will be on the left hand side. There's something called the Unicode bidirectional algorithm, which decides where these letters should go when the browser should work out how is this going to be displayed, and it comes about where you've got these weak characters and you've got a strong character on kind of both sides, then kind of it follows a strong character directionality, and so everything will be in the right place. But if you then get to the end of the character, the end of the sentence or the paragraph, and the next thing is perhaps some white space or line break, then the algorithm, there's a certain combination, but the algorithm says it should fall back to what the parent document is, and in that case then you might find your punctuation jumps to the end, so whether it's an exclamation mark or a full stop, or some other characters, that the content might look odd, but when you're kind of testing the RTL, the main thing is that the layout is right. What you then just want to be careful of is if you're doing a right to left site or even left to right site, and where you've got the bidirectional content, so perhaps you're doing a Hebrew site, but some aspect of it is in left to right, in Latin characters, perhaps telephone number and so on, and Nir will be able to give an explanation of that. Right. So go ahead.
Yeah, no. That's right. There is a complex of English and Hebrew together, or Arabic, and multi-language sites have it all. I mean, you have in one WordPress installation, you can have many languages and different CSS files for each language, and you have to test it thoroughly to make sure that everything is readable for the user in his own language. This is very important. Another note that I want to mention is the way that the images are displayed. For example, if you have an arrow image, a right arrow image in your theme or in your plugin, you need to make sure that you have the RTL version of this image, either by adding an RTL suffix to the file name or having RTL images in their own folder in your theme file structure. this is another consideration to make when building theme or plugin.
Go ahead, Gary.
I was saying, and following on from that, as well as having a left-to-right image and a right-to-left image, part of the specification says that, well, some characters will be mirrored automatically. So if you've got a left bracket, it's often with the brackets, the various types, or parentheses. If you've got a left one, the algorithm already knows that the mirrored one should be the right-hand one, so they'll nicely kind of swap over and there won't be any issues. But there are kind of other characters, they don't have this. It's a property that they're called BiDi mirrored. It doesn't have that, and so say a left quote as English quotes, because other language have different type of quote characters, but the English quote, the mirrored is not the right hand quote. There is a difference. So if you've got sort of a background, a pseudo element, so before for your block quote, and you're putting a quote mark in there, then that won't necessarily be kind of automatically mirrored. So you need to kind of adjust the right to left style sheet such that it does account for that, if that's what you're going to kind of support. And other characters that are added via the content property of the CSS to account for those as well.
Yeah, Gary, if you get a chance to tweet a link to the BiDi site, you sent it to me a while back, but that has the different characters that show which ones do the flip on their own. And I said that wrong, probably the bidirectional thing.
The BiDi mirrored, yeah.
BiDi mirrored, okay. I feel silly. I still feel silly saying it. Okay, Devender has a great question. What's the status of the current official StudioPress themes in regard to internationalization? And Gary, is that anything you can speak to?
Internationalization, I think they're all pretty good now. The child theme, certainly Genesis is fine. For a long while, they didn't have they'd wrap the strings in the internationalization. And David Decker, if he's listening, will kind of picked up on this quite a bit, is that they never actually put in that kind of that very small kind of couple of lines that would require that it loaded the child text domain. So although the hard work was done, that final kind of step was missing. But I believe they've all been done now. Just checking the functions file and see if it's there for the theme that you've got. But in terms of internationalization, it's done, and that's where then the translate.studiopress.com and kind of, I think Remkus is kind of looking after that one as well, Remkus de Vries. Then that is where the localization would come in. So people have done kind of some localizations for themselves, but having it all centralized in a WordPress install means that you don't have to do it all yourself. You can go and look there first to see if it has been done. That is the area I think kind of StudioPress kind of need to work on now to make sure that they're saving duplicate efforts within the community, and having that so that if kind of the statistics that Matt Mullenweg said before, that kind of 50%, more than 50% of WordPress installs, and you'd averaging out, you'd think that perhaps kind of StudioPress installs as well were being sold kind of more than 50% outside of English, then that's certainly a key area for StudioPress and Web Savvy Marketing and kind of anybody else who are kind of supporting that to have that localization support there as well.
By the way, still in Genesis there are child themes where I saw strings inside the functions PHP files that are not translation ready. Still, there are some glitches that developers need to fix as part of the localization process.
Oops, sorry, I couldn't unmute myself fast enough. This is a great segue because so far we've been talking about sort of the technical components of internationalization. What does it mean to make your code translation ready? But let's talk about it from a business perspective. Are there missed opportunities, and this is a rhetorical question, are there missed opportunities when someone doesn't bother to make a product, a software product that can be used internationally? Nir?
Yes, there is a huge market that is waiting for products that are suitable for the market in regards to language and in regards to RTL. And I can see it in my market, for example. There are themes that are not RTL ready, and they are very good and very from a code perspective, they are very efficient. But they will not be used in my market because they are not RTL ready, or that there is no RTL demo for it. It's not that just a matter of creating your theme or plugin RTL ready. You need to make sure that it's localized. I mean, ask the community to help you with your product, to translate your product, and after that, spend some time and creating a demo, a specific demo for the markets that this product is suitable for. For example, if your theme is, let's go back to Utility Pro, one of the reasons of having it's translated to Hebrew is in order to create a demo Utility Pro theme in Hebrew. This is the best way to sell your product in a local market. And I'm a big fan of the phrase of think globally, act locally. You need to make sure that it's not just ready from a developer perspective. It is ready from a business perspective as well.
Gary, would you add anything to that?
Nothing amazingly insightful. No, I mean it's covered it. As I mentioned earlier, if it's known that 50% of the community, WordPress community, are using WordPress in a non-English install, then that's going to be roughly the same percentage for your potential market. So, I mean, in terms of the RTL, I think I looked at out of the 7 billion people so on the planet, is about 500 million were using a right-to-left language or right-to-left script. Which is still a significant kind of proportion that you could potentially increase your sales by. In terms of the internationalization, which is obviously kind of much wider, then I don't know what the English kind of usage is, but if you consider everybody else isn't using English, then why would you not internationalize it so that and support the community to localize it as well with a WordPress install? And a way of getting that out to the users as soon as possible so that they're not all duplicating it for themselves. I mean, in the end, that just makes the developer's life easier for those who would otherwise have to translate, and that means they're benefiting. All those developers who would otherwise be doing it kind of 100 times over, well, you could just get somebody to do it for your theme once, and have that on the WordPress, and then everybody benefits. So it's just doing the work once, in not necessarily in house, but with as part of the company who are distributing it, and everybody benefits.
And that's another thing that I want to add is in regards to the do-it-yourself audience. You need to know that this audience will not use any product that is not suitable for his needs, and this audience cannot change CSS or write code. And if you don't have it ready in your theme or plugin, this audience will not use it. And I consider, for example, in my market, there is one single theme that was developed for the RTL audience with all the CSS for, let's say, the majority of the plugins, such as WooCommerce and so. And this is very popular theme in this market. And just because it targets the DIY audience, it's easy to install and use out of the box. And I cannot say it about Genesis. I mean, if you want to use a Genesis theme in an RTL environment, it would be easier if you use if you have a developer skills for doing so.
I think it's a case of, and it's the same with what you were talking about last week, the accessibility, is that theme or plugin developers really at this point, kind of coming up with new ideas, coding it, following best practice coding standards and so on. That's kind of an expectation. Well, the expectation now should be on the actual, excuse me, the problem solving of internationalization and accessibility, so that the onus is not left then to other people to do that.
So if you're listening to this and you are creating plugins and or themes and you would like a broader audience to sell to, then make it accessible and also translatable. Make it easier for the end developer, like Gary just said. There's a large market that is very underserved with products in the WordPress space, as it goes with our topic today. We've got a few minutes left here, so feel free to get more questions in using hashtag GOHchat. Leonica would like to know, Gary, how is writing your new book going?
I'm not quite sure which book she was mentioned, but I probably mentioned before about having some articles and potentially ebook about how to do stuff. Well, I've decided not necessarily to do an ebook on that, but I'm going to be doing some kind of premium, basically an online course, so some premium articles on the website, some videos, and kind of put the information out that way as an online course. That's going to be kind of more productive and more helpful than just having a PDF. Some people are kind of auditory learners and visual learners rather than just necessarily kind of the ones who read from a PDF. So that is going to cover some Genesis topics and some perhaps some wider scope developer topics and some very kind of niche topics as well. There's several kind of series planned on that. So yeah, so it's in the works. Plenty of excuses why it hasn't happened yet, and kind of the mastermind group that I was talking to earlier will say that I need electric shocks to get myself up and going on that, but it is definitely still in scope for that.
Well, you probably don't have time because I keep pestering you with
too many theme audits and other things to do. Yeah.
Gary, I need you to do this. Gary, I need you to do that. Yeah. Okay. So I'll stop bugging you so that you can actually go ahead and get your book written. Nir, what are you working on? Anything you can share in terms of where your business is and where you're going?
Up until now, I'm doing most of my times on individual projects. Most of them are for the local market. I mean, there are RTL websites, EBU websites, and some of them are multilingual websites. Currently, I'm working on a project, and this is a good case for all of us. I'm working on a project for a German company who has activity in Israel as well, and this site will be with 5 different languages, which 2 of them are RTL languages, Hebrew and Arabic, and the other 3 are German, English, and Spanish, I think. And this creates a lot of, I would say, challenges in this project. It's not just a matter of RTL and different languages. Different languages, by the way, German is I think it's 30% longer than English. So it has to be something that you need to take into consideration when you are doing a design for a website. You don't have enough space in your menu, for example, in the German version. All this stuff is something that if you're building multilingual websites, you need to take it into considerations. And now I'm trying to add products. I'm trying to add products into my business. I know that there is a market for, as I told you before, the do-it-yourself market. It is an audience that they are looking for solutions, for products. They want to do it themselves. They don't need a developer. They just need a good product to run with. And I'm trying to bring Genesis into this to this market and to this audience. So I'm looking for to localize plugins and themes to be used by this audience.
How would you so opening up a like actually selling these things, or would they be gifted to the community, or how do you envision that?
I think that it's not just a matter of putting a product in your website and tell your audience, okay, I have a new product, just use it. You need to be wise, and you need to be very sensitive to your market needs, and this market needs additional support. I mean, if you are selling a theme, you need to provide not just documentation on the theme, you need to provide a course, a webinar, or something that people can, first of all, they need to trust that your product is actually working for them, and they need to visually see that they can use it by their own. I mean, they can install it by themselves. They can create content. They can change the layout or the styling of the website by themselves without calling any developer. And you need to demonstrate it for them. It's not just a matter of writing it under the product specs. You need to show it to them, and I'm ready to do it. I mean, I want to take good products from such as Genesis, Genesis child themes, and good plugins, and add value to my audience. I have a lot of clients that are looking for these products, and at the moment I don't have enough products to sell them.
I love your focus on education as well as providing solutions for that space. We had a great question from Cindy. So let's say that you're working with a theme that looks great with RTL, and now you come along and add a plugin, and in her case, she's asking about WooCommerce. What are the expectations? I mean, should people just expect that they're going to have to do a lot of CSS customizations when working with a plugin like Woo? And I'm not picking on Woo. I have no idea. They may look great in RTL.
Actually, you have a good example right now, because WooCommerce is a very popular plugin, and I think that they added the official Hebrew translation to it 6 months ago. Would you believe it? So, and there is no RTL CSS version for WooCommerce, as far as I know, as part of the plugin. And the theme that I told you about that is very popular in the RTL countries has all the right RTL WooCommerce CSS in it. It's part of the theme, and it's not part of the plugin, which is very awkward. I mean, it should be part of the plugin, but I don't know. Maybe it's something commercial. Maybe WooCommerce or WooThemes don't like. Maybe they want to sell the plugin with their themes. So in their themes, there is a support for RTL WooCommerce plugin. For me, I'm using Genesis, and when I created the e-commerce website using Genesis, it's a long process for me, because I need to create my own WooCommerce RTL CSS files, and I need to use Genesis Connect to WooCommerce plugin. This is another layer of complexity to the project. And of course create the child theme as an RTL child theme. At the end, I'm getting a very, very good site, but I need to work very hard for it.
Sorry, I was good. I was cheating. I have Rebecca Gill from Web Savvy Marketing actually sitting in the room with me, so I was asking her a quick question. But we were talking about her Jessica theme that has the WooCommerce support built in, and then Nir is part of our project working on bringing her themes up to speed. were there additional CSS customizations you had to make for or have you used that theme yet?
No, I haven't used it yet. I just created a standard WooCommerce RTL CSS files that is ready for any kind of Genesis theme. It's just a matter of enqueuing the CSS files. That's all. It's ready. It's for Genesis and it's ready. Awesome. Everyone can use it.
Several questions floating by on Twitter about resources to follow up and continue learning on this topic. I've been pretty lame about doing show notes lately for the shows, but I will go back to this podcast page over at carriedeals.com/podcast and put up the notes of all the tools and the links that we've talked about so that you can, if you're interested in learning more about the topics of internationalization and translation and localization and all the zations, that'll be a good starting point for you. Guys, we're coming up on our hour, but Nir, Cindy jokes that you should start a business in this type of work, and she's right. She's right. But tell folks where they can find you if they want to hire you, if they want to say hello. Where do you hang out online?
The easiest way is via Twitter. I have my account and then my name there. It's at Nir Rosenbaum, Twitter. Just ping me, I'm there.
All right. And Gary, how about for you?
As you can probably see on screen, is gammajoe.com, and I'm Gary J on Twitter. So just give me a shout.
If I were to localize, how did you say your business name? GammaJoe?
GammaJoe.com.
Okay, yeah. In Texas, the localization is Gamajo.
Same thing.
I appreciate you guys coming on the show today and sharing some of your knowledge and hopefully sparking some curiosity on this topic for folks listening. I did want to, just as a final act of shameless self-promotion, send you to the demo for Utility Pro so you can see how that theme is working. It's cdills.me/utilitypro, and I'm working with Nir to get a Hebrew version of the demo up so that you can see the theme working properly with the RTL language. All right, any parting words, guys? Words of advice?
Not really. No, I mean, if you're a developer, go ahead and do what we've said, because it's going to benefit yourselves, the bottom line, and your customers and your clients. And yeah, it just benefits the community. For a little bit of extra work from you, a little bit of extra work from your customers and your clients and your fans, then everyone's going to benefit. There's no reason not to internationalize and localize and
there
support RTL.
No reason not to. Nir, any parting words from you?
Yes, I think that people should not be afraid of the internationalization issue. It's not an issue actually, just knowing the way to do it, to do stuff. It's very easy to do it with WordPress and Genesis, and if you want to grow your business, you have to do it. You have to do it, otherwise others will do it, and you will lose a very large market.
All right. Thank you guys for chiming in. You have just listened to another episode of Genesis Office Hours. This was episode number 44. You can find it over on carriedeals.com. And if you would like to be reminded of each week's podcast, you can go to carriedeals.com/subscribe. I promise I won't pester your inbox. I'll just send you a weekly reminder about this. Okay, well, until next week, hope everybody has a fantastic rest of the week. And guys, I do appreciate your time today, especially since we're pushing Gary, your kids' bedtime, and you're probably ready for bed yourself. So.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Nir.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Gary.
Bye.
Bye.